The Mark Carney government just released their new bail reform. Let's take a look and analyze this video. Give them a fair shake, see if this is going to do anything. Canada desperately needs it. Here we go.
One of the Liberals' marquee pieces of legislation this sitting, their long-awaited bail reform bill. It was introduced today, and here's what the bill will do if it passes and becomes law. Primarily, it would bring in a reverse onus requirement for major crimes. That means an accused would have to prove why they should get bail instead of the Crown proving why they should not. It would also mean consecutive sentences for violent and repeat offenders, but notably not consecutive life sentences, as the Supreme Court previously deemed that unconstitutional. It would also restrict conditional sentences if the bill passes into law. Sean Fraser is the Justice Minister and Attorney General. Hi, Minister. Welcome back to studio. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time.
It's good to be here with you.
Is this legislation a concession that your government got it wrong for the better part of a decade?
Quickly, the answer is clearly yes. That's what the answer should be. Let's see what he says.
No, this is a response to the very real concerns that we've heard directly from Canadians. We hear in different parts of Canada different concerns, but overwhelmingly there's enormous consistency with Canadians writ large, with law enforcement, with provincial governments, that they wanted to see changes to bail laws and stronger sentences for serious crimes. So this is a response to the lived experience of Canadians that they've shared with us in advance of the last federal election and since, to make sure that our laws are up to the standard Canadians expect when it comes to protecting their families.
But the laws that were in place prior to the introduction of this legislation, should it pass, were laws that the Liberals specifically put on the books. So we'll start, for example, in 2019 with C-75, which introduced the principle of restraint, codified the principle of restraint, led to a lot of backlash from law enforcement, federal opposition, as well as premiers who were asking for bail reform at that time. Your government introduced bail reform in 2023. Clearly, it didn't go far enough, or we wouldn't be here today. Why should Canadians trust you to fix a problem that you had a hand in creating?
What a great question. I like Vassy here. I mean, the Liberals messed it up. We didn't have this high crime problem in Canada before Trudeau got in, and it is high after from all the rules he changed around that whole group. So let's see.
So we will always want to iterate in response to the concerns that we hear from Canadians. There are certain elements of the laws that you've referenced that remain in effect today that actually do good things, making it harder for people charged with intimate partner violence to be released on bail, for example. But we do need to go further, and we need to acknowledge where the laws that we've put in place under the previous government need to be changed. We can't dig in and insist forever and a day that we've always been right. When we hear from Canadians and from law enforcement and from provincial governments who run the bail system that we need changes, we should take those concerns seriously. What I'm confident in, though, is that particularly with the validation we've seen of this bill from our law enforcement partners and from provincial governments, is that we've hit the mark. The new laws that we're introducing today are going to improve public safety when it comes both to bail and when it comes to sentencing for serious crimes that have been committed across the country.
Is there a substantive reason beyond just pressure from political actors for you to introduce this legislation, or is it inherently political? Are you doing this because, for example, the issue of crime and your perceived weakness on it cost your party a majority, or are you doing it because you think it will actually fix a problem?
So we are orienting the entire initiative behind what's going to help keep communities safe. We have heard very directly from people, less about their political concerns and they want us to match a provincial government or another party. We've heard that they're scared. People are afraid in certain communities, and they want the law to.
I mean, that's a good thing, right? It sounds like he's been getting screamed at from everybody behind the scenes to make things safe. So that's the only positive. When he says they've heard like make the place safe. That's what one of the good things about Canada. It's how it always was. And at least they're hearing it.
Protect them. Now, we think this is going to make a meaningful difference when it comes to improving public safety, but we also know that the job isn't done. We're going to have to work with law enforcement and with provincial partners, again, who run the system, to ensure that the changes we make have the resources behind them to actually be implemented. But we also know that the conversation about public safety is broader than bail and sentencing. Yes, we need tougher laws, not just on bail and sentencing, on intimate partner violence, protecting kids online, combating hate, but we also need to make the investments on the front line with law enforcement to help protect communities and prevent crime, and to make the upstream investments in the long term around affordable housing and mental health to prevent crime for the long term.
So on the first,
what's bothering me there is, first of all, he's talking about that hate thing, which, they're going to make a big deal about that. And then his quote unquote upstream, wasting more money it sounds like, on prevention. I mean, it sounds good, but have you ever, I've been to a lot of countries. Have you ever been to countries where they're pretty tough on crime? I'm not talking about like Middle Eastern ones, but just, just regular old Asia. Like you can't goof around there too much. Or you can goof around, but I mean, you can't commit crime or, you know, it doesn't matter how much money they put into social programs and stuff. They just don't allow it. And, here we allow it. And he thinks, oh, bail reform and sentencing is just one small part. But I think it's a big part. If the criminals are scared to commit crimes, they won't nearly as much. And then if you put the ones who keep doing it over and over again away for a long time, then they physically can't.
First part of when you're talking about additional resources, I think what really struck me is when I think back to the introduction of C-75, the stated purpose at the time was to do two things: address overcapacity in the jails, in the correctional system, and to address overrepresentation of minorities in the justice system. On the first, when you talk about additional resources, I listened to your press conference today.
Sorry to keep pausing it. I just have to there. I hate that term, overrepresentation of minorities. I don't care if every single person in every jail in Canada was white. I really wouldn't. All I care about is if you're the one committing the crime, you're the one going to jail. It doesn't matter if you're overrepresented. So one of the things the Liberals did before is they didn't want overrepresentation. Didn't matter who committed the crime. They just wanted the people in jail, not to be overrepresented. Like imagine if you said, male and female are 50% of the population each, and we have way more males in jail for murder, then that's not fair. Well, it is fair because males are doing it more often. So that's the kind of thing that they're trying to tinker with.
You firmly put the ball in the province's court. You said, hey guys, and I'm paraphrasing, but hey guys, you asked for this. You're going to have to make sure that it does what it's intended to do and deal with overcapacity. There are major overcapacity issues. I believe it's 100, some correctional facilities in Ontario are operating at 150% capacity. Are you going to, in this budget, put additional resources to addressing that? Because what you're introducing today will certainly compound that problem.
So what we introduced today was a response not only to the Government of Ontario, but I should take this opportunity to thank them, and in particular my counterpart, Attorney General Doug Downey, for his collaboration in developing some of these reforms. But one of the things that we learned through our extensive engagement with provincial partners is that the challenges in one province don't necessarily reflect the same challenges in another. Where it may be detention facilities in certain provinces, it could be Crown prosecutors, community policing may be a bottleneck in others. There are different systemic challenges that appear in different parts of the system in different regions of the country. The measures that we're putting in place today had virtually unanimous support amongst provincial governments, and given that they are responsible for administering the system and they wanted these changes, we certainly expect that they're going to match these changes with necessary resources. Now, we're going to remain at the table to have conversations about what the appropriate role for the federal government is, particularly in areas of federal jurisdiction, but this is a conversation where I'm not interested in picking a fight or pointing fingers. I've had a very positive experience working together with.
I mean, think of this. We're supposed to be a first world country. They're talking about, we don't have enough jail space. Well, then you're just going to have to build more quickly, right? In no circumstance can we live in a world where we've got violent criminals out on the streets because we can't figure out how to put them behind bars. Like imagine if they said, well, I guess some kids just don't go to school because we don't have enough schools. No, they figure it out. You have to have a place to put violent criminals, no matter the number. So that's not an excuse.
Provinces who I think get it, who I think want to solve this problem, and we want to be a meaningful partner who does our job, and we expect that they're going to do theirs as well.
But what is your job? Because my question is about what happens if the problem you thought C-75 was going to fix ends up getting a lot worse by taking away some of what was put in place. And by that I mean that the justice system becomes even more delayed and more fraught with additional cases that can't be handled in a timely manner, and that the correctional facilities become even more, at higher levels of overcapacity. I take your point that it's not in every province, but there are some pretty staggering statistics about capacity in nearly every single province. So what is your role? Are you prepared to put more resources if necessary?
So in terms of our role, we certainly own the text of the criminal code. And when we're delivering on the measures that Canadians are asking for, I can't in good faith say that because there are challenges with capacity in detention, that we should do something less than put forward the laws that we think will promote public safety. We have to start with...
I mean, that's basically what you did in the last government.
This is a new government, and there is a different approach that's being taken. I am...
Same party, to be fair.
Yeah, certainly, we are the Liberal Party of Canada. You're right about that, but I can tell you the focus that I'm taking to this particular initiative is designed to ensure that we have a legal framework in place that will promote public safety. To the extent that there are downstream implications within the system, we want to work with provinces. That may include, I got a question at the press conference today about reviewing the judicial complement that certain provinces are facing based on the caseload in their courts. When it comes to the operation of the provincial court system, of the bail system, where disproportionately the responsibilities fall to the provinces, we do anticipate that they're going to need to inject resources into the system.
So will you provide them? That's my question.
Look, I am not broadcasting budget decisions that have not been made public, but my goal here is to figure out if there is a mess in my own backyard, I want to clean that up first. We've taken a major step in the right direction with the legislation that we've tabled today.
Well, let's see. I mean, a lot of people think it's too weak, typical of the Liberals, but, you know, I don't care about the theory so much. I care about, are we going to be hearing less stories about break and enters, car thefts, you know, crime, like major crime rings doing major theft of stores, stabbing, shootings, the whole bit. Are we going to hear a lot less of that and see a lot less of it when we're walking down the street in mid to large cities of Canada, or not? And that's really what we're going to be looking at, not just the theory. Of course, he's going to blame, you know, if it doesn't happen, he'll blame things like not spending enough on social services, even though we spend too much, or, you know, it's the provinces that ultimately carry out the law and it's not the way it's written. But, you know, who's going to believe that?
To the extent there are other areas that fall within federal jurisdiction, whether that's federal RCMP, border officials, whether that's the judges whose costs falls to the federal government, there are spaces where we need to continue to do our job. But my sense is, working with provinces, they know what their responsibilities are and they want to take action as well.
If the problem is violent criminals out on bail recommitting crimes, are you certain that this time, this sort of second shot at things will actually, as you put it, solve the problem to the fullest scope that it can? And I will sort of back end that question by saying, why not repeal the principle of restraint?
Certainly. So the challenges are so much broader than any one principle. I do think that the legislation we put in place today takes a meaningful step towards addressing public safety concerns that are very real, that we've heard about. But we know that in order to solve the problem, we will need those provincial governments to step up with resources. But we also need to make the upstream investments that I mentioned at the outset of this conversation around mental health and addictions, around affordable and supportive housing, around programs for youth. If we want to take a long-term view, these are the kinds of things that will prevent crime from taking place in the first place. And
I mean, he's really underselling how big of a deal it is. If you can penalize crime and people are scared to commit crime, that's a big one. And he's acting like that's just one small piece to the puzzle, and you got to spend money on a whole bunch of programs so that hopefully they don't want to. Just the fear of committing it is massive. And we used to have that, and that's why there wasn't so much crime. It was one big reason.
Will have a profound impact, but we have to take action in the short term, A, to help improve public safety, but B, to ensure that Canadians have faith in the administration of justice.
I'm not sure that answers my question. Why not repeal what you codified and led to this issue in the first place, which is the principle of restraint? Why still have that on the books if it has in any way contributed to this issue?
So the principle of restraint, if you repealed precisely the section that was adopted in Bill C-75, would still exist because it didn't come from the federal government. It came from the Supreme Court of Canada.
I'll stop here. I'll let you watch the rest of it if you want. I think Vassy's great. You can tell, like, just personality-wise, like if you met her at a barbecue somewhere, just hanging out, she'd be a normal person, kind of fun to talk to. This guy, unless it's all fake, I mean, a lot of it seems to be, he's so robotic. That's one thing that scares me, plus his terrible track record on everything. But just such robotic answers. And I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they did something. I'm not going to hold my breath, but let's see. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments, though. What do you think about this? Do you have any hope for it? Or is it just another classic liberal babble away fail? Or what do you think? Again, love to hear your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel, share it, and we'll see you in the next one.